Hey everybody, Nicholas Matovich here with another 3 book reviews of what I'm gonna announce today. Please leave your comments at the end of the video and to make sure I did everything well. I have 3 books I'm going to show you. Are pretty much very consistent with my fascination with railroads and the history of everything from tourist line, logging railroads, narrow standard gauge, you name it. So the books here are about maybe $35 or $50 if they're brand new, but used will be about $32 if you're fortunate enough. They are found in mostly in souvenirs or in NRHS chapter events, the National Railroads Historical Society for their annual routine convention, a verbal convention as you will say it, in parts of the U.S. So mostly in the eastern U.S. So without further ado, I'll get ready first by putting this first book out. This first book, I could. This is called the Shay Logging Locomotives. And this is Shay number 12 on the front end cover, and it'll give you the history of all the Shay locomotives and the logging locomotives the Cass Scenic Road had purchased ever since its inception from the West Virginia pulp and paper mills, starting around early 1899, 1900 or so. In my opinion, this is one of my favorite books, and it basically gives you the specifics. Like, this is Two Truck Climax number 9 at the time. This is the old one. It's been scrapped since it was scrapped in the early to mid 20s. It was cut up for scrap, so it was long gone by the time it was. It was built in 1904, and they scrapped it ever since. So that's all gone. And the original Cass Shay number 6, not the Western Maryland, but on here, try to get a better picture. This is the Shay locomotive that was stored in West Virginia during a runaway train derailment around 1981 or so, before it went back to, well, what happened was the boiler and frame were scrapped in Cass in the 1980s. The rest of the parts, like the gears and the wheels and all that, and the cab were crushed, so they were scrapped as well. So that Shay is no longer in 1980. I'm sorry, it was 1980, but they scrapped it. I knew it was like 1970s. 76 is when it was destroyed by a Beano freight train. So it was scrapped in the early part of 1980. But this is probably one of the craziest Shay locomotives. But right here, originally it was a 3-truck, 175-ton 3-truck Shay, and it was converted to add water capacity. It was rebuilt in 1933 or so as a 4-truck, 227-ton 4-truck Shay locomotive. Number 12 is the only one that survived to have ever built with a 4th truck for conversion. So, unfortunately, it was scrapped. It was scrapped in '57 because of the 1951 derailment with a 280 consolidation from the Western Maryland. That locomotive was scrapped, as well as the 4-truck Shay, and pretty much the whole collection included like maybe 22 steam locomotives ever rostered in their collection. There could be more, but as far as I can not say that these are probably I only could say there's maybe 16 locomotives that from 1900 to 60 they purchased. there could be more, 20 to 37 at least, including most of the locomotives that were either leased or went back to the West Coast. So, I'd give this book, the Shay Logging Zacchaeus, I give this a, it does give you specifics, but there's no consistent history. I give this an 8 out of 10 because of the rich history and specific details, but it doesn't give you the consistency that many people are hoping for. And I'm glad they have they have a glossary at the back of the book. So, and this is by a name Philip Bagden, who was one of the people from the NRHS. Second book is another book called The Cass Scenic Railroad. This one's called 50 Years of State Park, The Century of Esteem on Bald Knob by a gentleman named Bob Withers, Tim Hensley, and Ken Miller. Now, Ken's probably one of the only people who's with the NRHS convention, so he wrote this book, and it gives you exactly the specific details. It gives you all the Shay locomotives from 1900 to above, and then they have the Shay number 3. The second number 3 was a oil-fired locomotive. It was originally Mount Emily number 1 up in Oregon when it was leased to 20 years to Cass from Oregon on the former Prinesville city of Prinesville Railroad in Oregon. The engine went back to Oregon in May of '94, and it was basically it was held for 2 years. Then it went back to Oregon via 2 flat cars, and they carried it all the way through the interchange and all the way back to the Northwest coast. So, and a ton of history. And I definitely say this book, I can't really go into a whole lot of the pages, but this is a 10 out of 10. This couldn't get any better. And for this to be having the history of not only Bald Knob and Whitaker Station, but also parts of the Logging Association as well. I mean, this is another great book that you should recommend to anybody. And I recommend this to all the adult rail fans, both young adults and elder alike. They would fall in love with this book. So make sure that you definitely add that to your wish list. And the last one is called The Pennsylvania Railroad from 1940s and 50s. And it's from Don Ball Jr., who sadly died in 1986 from a heart attack. And this is one of the M-Class 482 mountains on the former Pennsylvania Railroad, hauling coal for the power plants. And in this book, see a lot of great footages, and then there's a GG1 on the very rear, and some subsidiary lines, like affiliate lines, like the Long Island. They have a few of their 460 G5 10-wheelers, which one of them, number 39, is at Strasburg being rebuilt through a privately leased contractor from the Railroad Museum of Long Island. So, definitely try. This is another. This is a very good book. I would definitely give this way over 10 stars. This is another. I give this a 13 out of 10 because of how it's unlucky enough that you can't find this book anywhere else. This is an old book. This is a one of a kind. The reason I gave it a 13 is because you'd be very unfortunate to find this around online. You can't even find this. This is out of date, and most of Don Ball's publishings have been bought out since his death around 1986. They were rebought back in 1987. So, other than that, for my book reviews, I will hopefully hear from all of you, and write your comments at the bottom. I'll get back to you shortly. Okay, Nicholas Matovich here, signing off. Bye.